Thank you very much. Just at the outset, I just want to express disappointment at the content and tone of the comments made by Deputy McGrath. Tonight is a night for statements on the humanitarian crisis that exists in Calais and what we should be doing to respond to that. It wasn't an opportunity to speak about hauliers. There are separate issues there and genuine issues in relation to difficulties that hauliers have, but tonight wasn't the night for that, and I think he disappointed in the tone that he took tonight. I think it was unfortunate, and the idea of discriminating against children under 6 and over 6 is quite shocking, really, and beneath what anybody should be saying here in this House. At the outset, I just want to say that I think anybody who has had children or knows anything about children finds it really impossible to visualise just how dreadful it must be for the many thousands of children who are separated from their parents and from their families. And when you consider the treacherous journeys that many of these children and young people have made, and the fact that they're living in the most appalling conditions, it really is unimaginable how they can keep body and soul together. And you just wonder how on earth they are managing to survive and hold on to any bit of sanity at all. I think when people are seeing the scenes unfolding on their television screens every night, the Irish people are generally responding by way of gut reaction. It's a gut reaction and it's a human reaction. And most of all, it's a sense of shame, I think. It's shame about the fact that other human beings are being treated like that and left in those awful conditions. It's shame particularly because of the fact that so many of those people are children and teenagers. And I also think there's a deep sense of shame being felt by Irish people about the fact that this is happening on EU soil. So there's a very strong demand, I think, from the public that we as a people and that our government does the right thing. People feel especially that it's important that we all think about our own children and think about what we would want to happen to them if they found themselves in those circumstances. Because people think through their own family circumstances and their own feelings. And that's why we've got this very strong gut reaction from people. And they're saying that this is wrong. People, children, should not be treated like this. And we, as Irish people, need to do something about that. And they're saying that what government has been doing to date is simply not good enough. We need urgent action to respond to this urgent problem. And we know, of course, that the Calais jungle should have been addressed back in 2002 when the original reception centre was closed. We should not have waited until conditions reached a point where on a daily basis 500 people were queuing just to get food. Such situations need to be addressed head-on and must never again be left until they reach a crisis point. However, this is a crisis of our own making, and Europe needs to change course in its approach to the refugee crisis. And as Europeans, we must face up to our responsibility in this regard. It's quite incredible that the current budget for dealing with refugees and related issues is structured in the way that it is, the European budget. The draft budget foresees almost €300 million of a contribution to Frontex, which is the organisation and the arrangements for managing borders, while at the same time, just over half of that amount, €153 million, is set aside for European Asylum Support Office functions. So almost twice the amount of funds for managing borders that are assisting countries with the asylum process have been allocated compared to what's being allocated in relation to refugees. Ireland needs to push this issue on the international stage and play our role strongly in facilitating the speedy relocation of children. We are well placed to do so, as several speakers have said. TUSLA has considerable experience meeting the needs of unaccompanied minors or separated children. And of course, Irish people want to do what is right. There is a high level of consensus in this House about what needs to be done, and that it needs to be done urgently. There is a strong demand from the public that we act, and act quickly. I think we have all been struck by the number of emails and the strength of the sentiment in the emails that we have received in recent days. And just to give a flavour of that, the National Youth Council is calling for immediate action to care for the children and young people at the Calais camp. When countries were pulling out of the Mediterranean, they say, during the current humanitarian crisis, Ireland stepped in and sent its naval services to coordinate and assist. We are all very proud of that. There is a precedent there to help, and we in Ireland can be proud of this, but now we must act again. What is needed now is an agreed plan of action that will see children and young people placed in Ireland immediately. An action plan that delivers is what is needed now. Let's see those who are amongst the most disadvantaged and endangered group of young people in the world safely relocated in Ireland with the best of care and services available to them. That expresses the sentiment of the Irish people currently. There is another communication from a volunteer teacher who has been in Calais. And he says, during my time working there, I came to know many of these young people very well and was inspired by their determination, kindness and enthusiasm for school. And despite the fact that they were living in terrible circumstances, in fear for their lives, with all kinds of things happening during the night, they still turned up enthusiastically for school. And he's saying that he's imploring us as representatives of the public to choose love and compassion, not fear, and support the motion or the call here to rescue these children. It is also important to point out that Uplift were able to gather up a list of almost 8,000 names just in the last few days, demanding that we take action. And it's also important to point out the work that Not on Our Watch has been doing in recent times, in recent days, in providing briefings for people and in outlining a course of action. It's unfortunate that we're just having statements tonight, I have to say. There had been a draft motion circulated last week. I believe that motion would have had the majority support in this House. It's unfortunate that government chose to go with statements instead of a motion. There is an excellent motion that has been produced by Not on Our Watch, and it's hoped that that motion can be taken next week. Just in conclusion, I want to say that that motion sets out very clearly the views of the Irish people in terms of what needs to be done now. This is what is required. We must act as human beings. We must act with generosity and love. That is required. And Ministers, your performance here tonight, your response has been extremely disappointing. And you must show now that you understand what the Irish people are saying. It's time for leadership. Thank you.
And Chuck Damon, Ryan, 6.5 minutes.
Very much. The Green